Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of Free Thinking with Montel. Of course, I'm your host, Montel Williams, and today's episode touches upon the symphonies of sustainability and song, a harmony that makes our remarkable guest navigate with unparalleled grace and fervor. She's an acclaimed recording artist discovered by the legendary Prince himself, shifted her poignant passions towards mitigating hunger through urban farming, an endeavor that, just like her music, seeks to heal and inspire. Taja Sevelle, thank you so much and welcome back to our show. This is your second appearance on Free Thinking with Montel, so welcome back. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
No, for sure. Thank you. Look, you've beautifully merged your love for music with your humanitarian efforts, starting with urban farming back in 2005. Can you share what sparked the genesis of this incredible organization?
Well, I was recording a CD for Sony 550 in Detroit, Michigan. And as I became acquainted with the city, I started to see all of this unused land. And I learned that there were 17,000 acres of unused land in the city of Detroit at that time. And it was costing the city almost $1 million a year to mow it. And then I started to learn about the food deserts and the food insecurity and the hunger in the city. And because I had lived on a farm for about 3.5 years in my youth, fallow land for me looked like an opportunity. So I said, why don't we just plant food on this land and it'll get rid of hunger and it'll, do all of these great things for the city. So that was the catalyst.
So, I mean, you came up with a great idea, but you didn't live in the city of Detroit. So who was going to manage these farms if you decided to? How did you come up with the idea of, and give me the whole genesis. So you decided I'm going to use this fertile land or feral land, but who's going to run it? Who's going to do it? Who's going to do the work?
It's a great question. So the way that we started is we would soil test and then we would dump 2 semi-trucks of topsoil and compost on the average plot of land and spread it out. And we would hire crews. And the concept really grew because you put me on your show in the very, very beginning. And I think we had like 3 gardens by the time you had put me on the show. And after that show, everything started to take off. Joyce Lipinski, who was the wife of Richard Lewis, a good friend of mine, was involved with urban farming. And then Richard Lewis got involved and then Craig Cowman and Atlantic Records. And so it really grew. And so donations started to come in and helped us a lot to be able to expand into all of these different cities around the country and also provide the crews that would take care of the garden if the school or community center or, vacant plot of land, if there was no one to take care of them or support it, we would provide our crews. But what happened was we started to grow so much that we had to really look at our business model and we had to change it. We had to, I would say after we were on the Ellen DeGeneres show, because we did a project with Kraft Foods and the Triscuit Cracker, Kraft had learned that 4 out of 5 people want less chemicals in their foods. So they did this project with us for 2 years, and we planted 65 gardens in 21 cities around the country. And that created sort of a tipping point, a Jenga moment, and created a global trend. And at that point, our growth was so expansive and so explosive that we had to change the business model. And so because we couldn't continue to support all of those crews on all of those gardens, for gardens that were unable to support the gardens themselves for, like schools or community centers. So we supply people with free plants and free garden resources and help them grow their own food. And we also support community gardens. So that's where we are now with it. But it's such a great question about supporting the garden. And you do have to have the investment from the community.
So through your work, you interacted with various communities. What insights have you gained on the entire regenerative farming issue and its significance?
I'll tell you, I lived on a farm for 3.5 years, as I mentioned, in my youth, and I learned a lot on that farm, but I have come to learn so much more about organic farming and the importance of regenerative farming. And there's a very important film out right now called Kiss the Ground, which was directed by a friend of mine, Josh Tickell, and it was narrated by, and his wife, and it was narrated by Woody Harrelson. And it talks about the importance of regenerative farming. And regenerative farming uses what's called biosequestration regeneration, which are methods with that plants and trees and farming techniques to bring the carbon that's contributing to global warming back out of the atmosphere and back into the soil where it belongs. Because industrial farming, which is killing our soil, killing all the microorganisms within our soil because it plasters the fields and the plants with chemical fertilizers, chemical herbicides, and chemical pesticides, which are very harmful for our health and the health of the environment. It's actually making it worse. It's making global warming worse. So using regenerative organic farming, we can begin to, recapture vast amount of that carbon from the atmosphere and bring it back into the soil. And so the movie Kiss the Ground, which was really started by Gabe Brown. Gabe Brown wrote a book called Dirt to Soil, and then did this documentary, which is very important. I'm going to mention it again. Kiss the Ground. It's on Netflix. Check it out. It breaks down the importance of regenerative organic farming.
But is that being embraced? I mean, just an offshoot. Is that being embraced the way it should be nationally? I mean, it's really kind of crazy that I saw a report about a week ago talking about, like, I think it's the 75% plus farms across America have been using this waste plant treatment sludge, which a lot of people don't even know that we literally take sludge out of waste plants. I'm talking about industrial waste plants, that treat water and treat human waste. They turn into a sludge, they grind it up, and they put it all over our fields. And now we're starting to realize that some of the chemicals that are still in that sludge are as detrimental as they are to our health and to our ability to actually regenerate the soil. I mean, do you think that from a national standpoint, we're starting to get a grip and understand that we got to be better stewards than we have been?
Well, it's a great question. I can't speak for, I can only speak for what I've seen, and I certainly haven't seen enough of the promulgation of this. And even in our tap water, because so many people are over drugged with prescription drugs at this point, we can see in our urine drugs that the masses are taking, because it's all going into the water, into the wastewater. So it's a combination not only of the pesticides and the herbicides and the herbicides, but it's just a lot of things. So I think moving away from all of the chemicals and getting back into the natural way of life is very important. Growing regeneratively, it not only enhances the biodiversity of native plants, but it helps the water. It optimizes water usage. I mean, 150-acre farm that increases just by 1 or 2%, by 2%, their soil organic matter, their soil will hold 2 million gallons of water per rainfall, more. So there are so many benefits when you rotate the crops. You don't till it. It's no-till farming. It creates more jobs. It's healthier for all of us, and it will sequester large amounts of CO2 from the atmosphere and put it back into the soil. So I don't understand. I mean, I do understand, but I don't understand why we got into these chemicals. I mean, I know how difficult it is for farmers to deal with
300 million people is why we got into it. 300 million
yeah,
people plus billions around the world that we think we're trying to feed with the same garbage that we've been eating now for the last 20, 30 years. That's where it comes from. It's,
yeah.
and that's the reason why we have so industrialized, using chemicals so much to speed up growth cycles and all these kinds of ridiculous things that nature never meant to happen.
Nature never meant it to happen. And if we farmed more locally, we bought more locally, each country really produces the lion's share of their own food from their native plants, we would all be healthier. And we didn't use all these chemicals. The other thing is, when you think about how nature intended things, cut open a bell pepper, you see a ton of seeds in it. And each one of those seeds is going to be another bell pepper plant with a whole bunch more seeds. Seeds were not meant to be genetically altered. They were meant, we've been given by our creator all of this beauty and this ability to keep going and sustainability. So having someone patent a seed and then tell the farmer, hey, you have to buy from us every year because they're suicide seeds. They've been engineered to not reproduce every year, when saving seeds has been the norm for centuries for farmers, is really, it's a sort of a greedy hack to try to control farmers and make money in a way that these plants and these seeds are for everyone on this planet. We all have a God-given right to all of them. So if I want to save my own seeds and farm with them, I should be able to do that. So it's important for people to learn how to save their own seeds, particularly organic and heirloom, good quality seeds. And these are some of the things that urban farming teaches about. We put educational resources in every bag. Like we just gave out 3,000 organic plants this past weekend over Mother's Day week on 2 events that we had, and we gave out to 200 people. And in every bag, there are educational resources that talk about seed saving and planting tips, etc.
Are you starting to see that people are starting to gravitate this way? I mean, your urban farming initiative is growing larger every single year. So is that because the word's out now, or what?
I believe so. We have gotten a lot of feedback from people. They don't want, just like Kraft found out that people don't want chemicals in their food. People don't want chemicals on their food when it's growing. So they want the organic. And it's just, the tough part is, like, for instance, in a food desert. Okay. And for those who don't know what a food desert is, it means that there are no grocery stores in the area, and they're usually low income areas. So it's difficult to, even get a full tank of gas to go grocery shopping somewhere far away. If you don't have access to fresh, good produce and food, and you only have access primarily to fast food restaurants, that's a problem. That's a zoning issue problem. That should be something that every neighborhood, every area has a certain, reasonable access to food. And when you create these environments where people only have access to fast foods, well, you have a big problem, because that's going to definitely impact their health.
There's
And
no
that's
question,
going to,
especially when we're looking right now at the fact that the number one cancer killer in America today for men is colon cancer. It's the number 2 for women. So, and we
yeah.
know that our diets immediately impact that, the possibility of even getting it. So you're right. Go ahead.
I want to show you this book I've been reading. It's called Toxic Legacy. And it's how the weed killer glyphosate is destroying our health and our environment. And it's written by Dr. Stephanie Senoff. And I've been reading it, and it's horrifying what glyphosate does. Glyphosate also has over 16 different names. So if you're looking at the ingredient on your particular herbicide or pesticide, or your herbicide or chemical weed killer, you might not see glyphosate because it's under a different name. It's like cloaked in all these different names, but it's horribly destructive for our health. And it's used on all of these crops like wheat and soy and corn and sugar. So when you're eating a pizza from a place where the pizza is not organic, you will automatically see glyphosate in your urine, and it crosses the blood brain barrier and deposits aluminum into your brain. It helps that transaction to happen. It's a horrible, and I'm sure many people have seen these commercials. Like, if you used Roundup and you had some problems, there are lawsuits. But why is it still on the market? Why is this chemical, this horrible chemical, still on the market? And think about fast food. It's the cheapest food, and that's where you're going to get a lot of these chemicals in the food also. So, these are things that our world can be profitable in many ways. Our world can be healthier. Our world can be happier. Our environment can be happier. Our bodies will be healthier. Our soil, if we start to go back to more natural ways of living and thinking and being.
Absolutely. Well, you seem to encapsulate that in your everyday life, and also especially in your music, because your music has always resonated with themes of love and hope. Your track Silver Lining seems to actually embody that philosophy. What was the inspiration of that track? And then when is your album coming out?
So the music video is coming out this Friday, May 17th. It's actually the music video just released on May 17th. The album will probably be released next year. I did a 5-song selection of music videos, and I'm releasing them between this year and the beginning of next year. Silver Lining, I wrote with D Moet. He's a fantastic award-winning producer and songwriter. And, he's worked with Nas and Snoop Dogg and all these different great people. He's had a very good career, and he's just a fantastically nice person. And so Silver Lining is all about like thinking on good things and riding that wave of finding the silver lining in every situation, and how that brings our creativity alive, because I believe that all of us are endowed with many gifts and talents. So some people may not have ever known they like to write books, or they like to paint, or they like to be an architect. So a lot of these talents start to come out, I think, once we're on that wave of what I call the silver lining, and being supportive of each other as people in this world.
Prince was extremely supportive of you and your career, and your collaborations with him were iconic. How did he support your urban farming initiative? You know,
Well, Prince changed my life, because I was working in 4 jazz bands and 1 R&B band, and I started a band of my own. And he came to realize that I was a singer in Minneapolis, and he gave me my first record deal, and it happened to be in the same week that I was accepted into the Berklee College of Music. So I had this choice, which was very easy to make. So that changed my life, because the first song that I wrote, which he really loved and wanted to put out as the first single, became a hit. So Prince has been supportive of me, from the very beginning. And then both of us had a spiritual awakening, and our lives really paralleled. And when I started urban farming, Prince was highly supportive, because he also had a big desire to help people who were suffering from hunger and food insecurity. So he was a big supporter of urban farming in many, many ways. He did some concerts to help raise money. Part of his perfume proceeds went to urban farming. He donated every year, and we had several conversations about not only bringing light into the world, but how can we help the world? And it was always fantastic to sit and brainstorm with him, because whatever we would come up with, he would immediately start putting into action. So that was pretty cool.
Unfortunately, we lost him, and now, I mean, those communities that are still stricken with chronic poverty and food deserts are still out there right now. I mean, how has that affected your outlook, and how has it affected the way you're producing music? Have you picked up his mantra, or his I don't know, uh, been blessed by having him impact the way you look at giving back from your music?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we talked about the importance of, when you are someone who has a lot of influence through art, or whatever you're doing. It's important, especially for artists like me, to make sure that my lyrics are good. They're not like trash and giving some twisted content to. And he talked about that too, and started to change his lyrical content. You and I, Montel, we've talked about the importance of not having all this twisted content in movies and in music lyrics and videos, talking about murder, talking about this and that. If I were an 8-year-old and I saw on a TV show, uh, 2 adults going at each other, which is what we see so much of, I would think that that is how you're supposed to deal with conflict. That's the way to resolve conflict, is just go at it. And it's so destructive, because now that's what we see. You reap what you sow. So this is another area where we need to sort of rein it back in our world, and bring
Yeah,
be careful about the content that we're putting out, because it is one of the factors right now that's contributing to poor mental health, to which when your thinking is off, that throws your physical health off. So yeah, we talked about a lot of these things, and my music moving forward was very carefully planned out, starting out with Silver Lining. um, which is focusing on being supportive and really, like I said, riding that wave of silver lining. And the video is really cool and fun. I haven't done a video in a long time, so this was just fantastic. It was directed by Chico Bennett, who just won several awards for his direction with Star 2, a rapper, and 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 my husband and I also co-directed, and we really just put together every scene the way that we wanted to, making sure that we're putting out good messaging into the world. The cinematographer is Hector Toro, and we've got great people. I've got songwriter Maureen Kaiser in the video, and guitarist and bassist Garrett Jones in the video, and choreographer and dancer Sebastian Johnson. So I can't wait for everyone to see it.
And so, Taja, the name of the first single released in the video is what?
Silver Lining.
Silver Lining. Can we take a look at it right now? Let's do that. Why don't we take a look at it right
Yes, let's do it. Let's do it.
now? Okay.
Hey, Marie. Hey, Garrett. This is going to be a great writing session. We'll be writing over by the pool. To your right.
Don't know if you remember the day you walked that line. Saw a goal to render, wide world in mind. I like the taste of those flavors. I like the wet of the rain. I really hope you remember. Jump around and paint your name. We are wind and water, silver lining. We make breakfast out of silver lining. We mine clouds and rain, silver lining. Life in colors out of silver lining. Drive our favorite dreams, and drink our favorite life. Best is all we see. In each other. Luc son si tendre, on could do a moment long. I'd like to tip the sender for every gift, every song. I like the fire in my eyes. I like the way that they shine. Each time that I remember, living life is too long. We are wind and water, silver lining. We make breakfast out of silver lining. We mine clouds and rain, silver lining. Life in colors out of silver lining. Drive our favorite dreams, and drink our favorite life. Best is all we see. In each other. I'm the same age as a new wave on the shore. I taste my life and it always tastes like more. We are wind and water, silver lining. We make breakfast out of silver lining. We mine clouds and rain, silver lining. Life in colors out of silver lining. We are wind and water, silver lining. We make our breakfast out of silver lining. We mine clouds and rain, silver
Unbelievable. Excellent. I'm telling you. My
Thank
goodness.
you.
And this is probably endemic or example of what the rest of the album will be like, right?
Some of it. I mean, the next song is a little bit of a different vibe, but it's all got the same, sort of high messaging in terms of just always ending on a high note. Like there's one song that I did when I was really, really going through tough time after my father passed. And, I just was feeling like a pressure cooker. I didn't know how to handle the level of some of the things that I was dealing with. And then one day I started writing this song with Jezreel Santos, and it just within 15 minutes we had the song, and another 20 minutes for the rest of the lyrics. This song just poured out of me. And that I'm releasing that a little later in the year, but that one is more of a mid-paced. And even though it's dealing with feelings of sadness and deep heartache and betrayal, it's called Higher Way, and it's ending on, always seeking that higher way through that type of distress.
Well, additionally, what else can our listeners expect from you, both musically and humanitarian endeavors in the future?
Well, I just found out that one of my songs that I wrote with the rapper Proof and Sean Carrington, and Proof was with D12 and Eminem. This song is called Living Proof, and it's the title track of a new documentary. I just found this out in the last few days, and it just won an award in Rome. And it's called Living Proof, Dr. Khalid El Hakim, Black History. And it's about a friend of mine, Dr. Khalid El Hakim, who he created the first mobile Black history museum, and it has over 10,000 artifacts. And the story is amazing because Proof actually funded he gave Khalid the money to go to northern Michigan, where there was a Ku Klux Klan auction happening, and buy some artifacts for the museum. So Proof said, "Here's the money. I'm not going to go with you. You go up there yourself." But it's an amazing story, and it's a fantastic and very important museum and documentary. And now it's going to be in the Essence Film Festival in July. So check it out. And I'm really excited about it. And I love the song. It's a fantastic song, and Proof raps in the song.
When we look at the music industry right now, it just seems to be in a state of flux from my perspective. Do you envision the role of artists and musicians in the near future and ongoing future and ongoing conversations about things like social issues and sustainability? Or are you trying to see if you can get others in the industry to understand their responsibility?
I think there's a faction of Hollywood right now that's sort of called wholesome Hollywood that is really breaking away from the twisted concepts that we've been seeing, and they want to bring different messaging to the world. And I think that's very important. And I think it's important for people to be supportive of that, and to say, for instance, if you're watching a movie and it's really twisted about people stabbing each other in the back or murdering or whatever it is, turn it off, walk away. It may be really well done, and you may say, "Oh, wow," turn it off. Same thing with the song. If the song has a bunch of crazy twisted content and is over sexualized, but it's a great beat and it's a great melody, you might get sucked in. But it's our responsibility to turn it off and say, "You know what? I want to get that vibe from a different place that's got a better message for me and my children." And
that's I'm telling you, Taja, I agree with you 100%. However, it just seems like that's not what America. I mean, look at what's going on right now. We're in the midst of multiple trials and against a former president, and it's almost as if that car crash voyeurism can't be quelled. People aren't turning it off. That's the reason why we have the news stations, pumping it 24 hours a day. It's the reason why every nasty thing that comes out of conversation, the nastier, the better. I mean, do you think that some way, shape, or form we're going to see a shift in this anytime soon?
I believe in that, because the thing is if you let every light go out, every light of belief of that go out, then you're in darkness. So people have to hold it. I mean, think about this, Montel. During the 400 years of slavery, or really it was more than that, but let's say you're a person who's 200 years in, and you say, "Hey, I believe that it's going to be outlawed someday," and the people around you say, "Not a chance. It's been going on for 200 years. It's a big industry. How is that going to be outlawed?" But people had to hold that torch. They had to keep that light and that belief, even through what looked to be, that it can't happen. So we're kind of in that
I
right
agree
now.
with you 100%. But now we look around the world and we're looking at different countries that are trying to think, or having discussions about things like servitude being okay.
Exactly. So we have to turn that around. I mean, this is where they're trying to head. Is like a big reversal, right? So, but the only way to change that is now and to keep going forward and to believe. If you lose your belief, forget about it. I mean, think about John Newton. John Newton wrote the song Amazing Grace. John Newton was a slave ship captain. Okay. And somewhere in there, he had a spiritual awakening. And even though after his spiritual awakening, it still took him a little time, but at a certain point, he dedicated the rest of his life to abolishing slavery. And there's a new documentary coming out that Kappa Studios is involved with about this amazing story, Amazing Grace. Amazing grace. I mean, think of those words. How sweet the sound that
Yeah.
saved a wretch like me. I mean, this man had a reversal. So a spiritual awakening, an awakening about really what's right and what's wrong can happen at any time in any of us. That's that X factor that you cannot plan for. So, and guess what? He did abolish slavery with Wilberforce in the British Parliament, and like Olada Equino. I'm reading his book. He was a former slave. It's unbelievable. And these guys fought hardcore. They were like very small group of people against the whole parliament at the time in the 1700s, and they won. Took them years, but they won.
And that's like you.
So
That's like you and your group. You're a small group trying to instill upon us the need for greater opportunities in urban farming. And do you think that there's going to be some breakthroughs in the near future that'll help to move these initiatives further forward?
I absolutely do. And I'll tell you this, I wanted to say something about frequencies because I deal with music and frequencies and music being in tune, etc. And I also deal with plants. People don't know when we're talking about nature and creation and how it was set up. It's so amazing. Our bodies are already like, we're just amazing. We don't need robotics. That's like like a feeble way of, it's like it's destroying us. So for to like incorporate robotics into our bodies and some of the ways that they're talking about, when you look at natural creation, think about this. Most people don't know this. Just the sound, just the frequency of the bees buzzing, bumblebees going around the tomatoes, that's what releases the pollen in the tomatoes. So if you're trying to do everything in this sterile laboratory, you're not taking into account the forces of nature that are needed to bring pollination to the tomato plant. You've got lightning. When lightning happens, it increases these ions in the air. It really is very helpful for the plants. There are so many different things that we don't know about. I mean, think about it. The guy who, when Benjamin Franklin, electricity, I mean, people said, hey, I think this can be. And other people said, you can't see it. You can't feel it. How do you think it's there? You're crazy. No, it is there. And people were able to harness it. So there are forces going on in our world that we need to be mindful of that created this world, that created this beautiful world, and being more in harmony with them and being more in touch with them, in tune, as a musician would say, is critical. And I think that the more that we are not, the more sick we become, the more we say, I've had enough.
Right, absolutely. Well, look, I'm almost out of time, but look, is there one message that you could send to our listeners about the power of combining, let's say, one's passion with purpose, and what would that be?
I'll tell you this, I look like I'm happy in this interview, and I am happy. But I'll tell you that it's not always easy. Sometimes I have to scrape myself up, and I have to do like the one foot in front of the other and just say thank you, thank you, thank you, and really try to grab on to happy thoughts. So if anybody watching this can relate to that, I would say keep going, because every time you're able to grab onto that happier thought and then just start riding that, every time you do that is a victory. So keep going and have faith. Have immense faith, because there's a frequency and there's a power to that. And faith means you're in the middle of something where you can't see it. You can't see the victory, but you have faith that it's there. So, have that faith, hold on to it, and keep going. Keep going.
Again, the single is out this Friday, but give me the name and title, and where can people go if they wanted to download the whole album, or is the album ready to come out? What?
Album is not ready yet, but the single is called Silver Lining. It's my first music video in quite some time. I'm really excited about it. And it's called Silver Lining. You can go to tajasevelle.com, TAJASEVELLE.com. You can also, for urban farming, go to urbanfarming.org and just have fun with Silver Lining and spread the word. And we are an independent label, Matrix Music. So every stream helps us.
You got it, for sure. Well, make sure hopefully our listeners will tune in and go up there and see if they can download it just to check you out, homie. So thank you so much for being a part of the show today. You are truly a beacon of hope and change. And thank you so much for sharing your light with us today.
Thank you, Montel. I appreciate you as always.
Absolutely. Folks, Taja Sevelle reminds us that every single note in our life, no matter how minor, contributes to the grand melody of change. Her story is the call to find your own silver lining, pursuing passions that not only fulfill us, but uplift us and uplift others. Tune in to our next, Free Thinking with Montel for more stories that can compel us to think freely and live fervently. And remember that the key is harmony. The key to harmony is in all of us. So thank you so much for being a part of the show today. I want to make sure you tune into the next edition of Free Thinking with Montel. Thanks for joining me on Free Thinking with Montel. Please make sure you're subscribed and hit the bell to be notified when new episodes post each week. We'd love to hear your feedback, so please send us your comments.